I'm sure it's not a secret that I love games, and honestly, many of the people who originally subscribed to me probably do, considering I made a lot of stuff about games. That's what a lot of my early channel was before the whole explosion about the coin locker babies and all that. However, I have noticed a rise in hate against games that are considered woke, and this always confused me. How is a game quote unquote woke, and what makes it so bad? So I thought it'd be interesting to maybe see what people have to say about games that are quote unquote woke. And I'm gonna be saying quote unquote a lot. And the thought process behind this whole, movement or thought process behind this whole ideology, I guess. And this video will definitely get, in some regards, political. And I know that politics right now is the last thing a lot of people want to hear about. And so I will try my absolute hardest to keep it as politics free as I could, but it's kind of unavoidable as this topic is political in nature, so yeah. But I just hope you guys enjoyed this one. So before we can really talk about this hate for quote-unquote woke games, we need to understand what woke, or the idea behind woke, what is woke? Where did it come from? Again, trying not to get political, but considering it has become more political as time has passed, it's a little hard to kind of not get political. The term has quite a long history with regards to usage, so I'll just give you the short of it. The term was originally in reference to being aware of racial injustice against African Americans in about the 30s, and it would kind of stay that way for a while. However, over many years, it would kind of go beyond African American injustice and, racial equality, but, just social and political issues as a whole. This ranges from LGBTQ rights to women's rights, again, racial injustice and critical race theory, and so on. And the term woke and its usage would reach its peak during 2020 when the George Floyd and BLM protests were happening. However, during that time, it would also gain a new meaning. Many conservatives, especially politicians, would begin to give woke a more negative connotation. Rather than describing someone who is aware of social and political issues, it was described more like they kind of used it more in this way that you are going to harm and ruin the traditional Western values that the US was founded on, such as economic stability, capitalism, family, gender roles, free speech, and tended not to really like discussions of racism, sexism, women's rights, and etc. Many conservatives also tend to dislike media that they consider woke. For example, I forgot what TV shows, but there are TV shows that teach kids that gay people are humans too, and it's okay to be gay. Skin colors don't make us worse or better, and we're all equal regardless of the color of our skin. And just because you're wheelchair bound doesn't make you less than anyone, and you can still pitch a mean ass fuck fastball. And it's all things that would be considered woke propaganda. Many politicians have gone against woke, quote unquote, in many ways as of recently. The best example probably would be Florida, where politicians have been going against woke through policies in the education system primarily. This includes discussions of racism in any regard having been banned from classrooms, books written by people of color, or anyone in the LGBTQ are kind of just being banned from school libraries, I believe, and discussions about sexuality in classrooms are prohibited from classes K through 3, and a lot of other things as well. Alright, so now that we have the general idea of what woke quote-unquote means, I'm going to be saying that a lot, how does this affect video games? Well, many people who dislike quote woke games have many different issues with games that are quote woke. Originally, they were against games that shoved leftist propaganda, whatever that means, in your face. However, they seem to be against games that are not always shoving stuff in your face anyway, so I can't really be sure about that statement. The things these people have issues with are a variety of things, from representation and depiction of women in video games to even just climate change and anti-colonialism. And yeah, they really don't like anti-colonialism, I guess. And it's just a lot of stuff in general, and it does heavily relate back to, I guess, what people outside of the video game culture have with quote woke. So how will I be talking about what makes a game woke? Well, I'll basically be talking about the criteria that make a game woke. And it's just to those who oppose these kinds of games, and kind of see what's going on with it, what they think, and give my thoughts, and then just go to the next thing. Let's start with the fun one, I guess, the most, extensive one, I don't know how to put it, female representation and depiction in games. Many people who oppose woke games find the way that women are represented in games today are, quote, woke or politically correct. The best example of this, oddly enough, is Resident Evil 4 Remake. That game. Yeah, I know. It's a strange one, but hear me out. This game would have received critiques and criticism like all games do, and some were obviously valid, like performance issues and gameplay things. However, there was actually some criticism that said the game was apparently, quote, woke, and politically correct compared to the original. Here are the critiques that people gave, generally speaking, about this game being woke. Ashley does not offer sex to Leon Kennedy at the end of the game. Ashley isn't sexualized enough and is wearing a longer skirt. Ada Wong isn't sexy compared to the original and isn't the mysterious submissive woman she was in the original game. Ashley and Ada Wong are too brave and too competent, and yeah, these are actual things that people were very unhappy about, and also perfectly encapsulate what people dislike about woke female depiction in media. Now, it's actually quite interesting before I go on to, like, you know, other things about what games are woke, like why games are woke. I do want to talk about Ada Wong specifically and, you know, how she was less sexualized and how that was very angering to people. Lily Gao, the voice actor for Ada Wong, kind of came out and, you know, she got harassed and sent a lot of death threats and had to deactivate her social media accounts. But as she came out and explained why she was less sexualized compared to the original game. Quote, "Inauthentic casting perpetuates an unhealthy image that further dehumanizes the community they seek to reflect. It is time we stop only capitalizing on these sexualized, eroticized, and mysterious Asian women and make space to honor every kind of Asian woman. My Ada is a survivor. My Ada is kind, just, intelligent, and funny. She is unpredictable, resilient, and absolutely not a stereotype." And I feel like that is a fair point to make. The sexualization and stereotyping of Asian women is something that has definitely been capitalized on in the past in many different forms, I think, and it definitely can be harmful to people who are just normal-ass Asian people, but that's just my opinion. I guess my friend put it best when he said, "Imagine if all the white people in games were just shown as dumb, big, buff people." That's kind of what he said, and just capitalizing off that feeling. Anyways, let's go back to criticisms about woke women. It's not really uncommon. Actually, this is, again, I said this is the perfect example because every game with a, I guess, progressive idea of women has this common critique of competence and lack of sexuality in female characters. For example, there's a very interesting curator and group on Steam called the, quote, Woke Content Detectors, or WCD, I guess, and it's a group of people who decide what woke games are on a very long set of criteria. One of the criteria said that a game is pro-DEI, which I'll talk a little more about later, but it basically means that a game shows characters, like females, that are, I guess, capable and just as competent as healthy white men. And you want to know what they said about Call of Duty Advanced Warfare? They said it was woke because the highest ranking frontline operator was a woman, and said CS2 was also woke because there are female agents you can play as, and one female operator is buffer than most male operators, and all of them perform the exact same. I'll talk more about woke content detector later though, but just keep them in mind. Another example is the time a very infamous and very, I guess, conservative game developer Grums spoke out against how the liberal propaganda is infecting the new Sonic game. I couldn't find the tweet, but I remember one of the most strange things he said was how they made Rouge the Bat have smaller boobs and they covered him up a bit. You know, they show less skin. You get the general idea of these criticisms. Now, what do I think? I feel like female characters and games as a whole should not be criticized on their female characters having sex appeal and their female like how competent they are. With the sexualization thing, there are many arguments I've heard against it. If games uber sexualize every single female character in games constantly and have sexy characters and all that, as Ada Wong puts it, it can easily perpetuate an untrue stereotype and further give the idea that women are objects that are just supposed to sit there and be pretty. It can also further encourage young women and girls, underage or of age, to conform to Western beauty standards to an unhealthy level and further propel the already bad mental health issues related to body positivity and self-image, and also sexualize minors in a way. Because if you think about it, it kind of goes, I don't know how to put it, but it is something that has happened over time. I didn't want to do too much research into that because that's a different topic and it's much darker. But yeah, but the thing is I still think it's fine to have attractive characters, of course. That's not what I have an issue with, but I don't think it should be seen as something that is completely critical to designing a character and something that every character needs. I understand, though, that it is, again, part of the anti-woke agenda, I guess, and, you could theorize about that. About the submissiveness. Okay, I said it right. And competence, and how the lack of competence in a woman would just encourage a stereotype that isn't true either, and that whole line of reasoning. Now, again, it's part of the broader anti-woke belief that women should have less rights or be objectified and subservient to men, but I just still find it strange that it's something that's so deeply upsetting to people when it comes to just something as simple as a game. I guess fine, if you're an anti-woke person and you really, really hate women, whatever, but if it bothers you that much to where a fictional game, I guess, bothers you, it just feels very strange. You know, actually just thinking about it though, it does feel kind of funny because the whole reason behind women actually getting rights and equality and being seen as capable all originated from how men saw women as morally and religiously superior to men, and still do sometimes, during the Victorian era. That's a whole history lesson though, I'm not going to get into that. Overall, just know that I think this whole critique stems from the idea that, like, I guess people are not very big fans of masculine or less feminine women, and I guess just how it represents like a social shift in norms. I could keep talking about this forever, but, you know, probably going to stop. One of the next biggest things is actually LGBTQ representation. This comes in many forms to people who oppose woke games. The most obvious thing would be characters who are like trans, gay, lesbian, gender fluid, asexual, whatever. You know, you get the idea. It's that kind of thing. However, there are a lot of other things too. For example, there are people who consider Call of Duty, yes, Call of Duty, 2019, Modern Warfare 2, Modern Warfare 3, all of the ones after 2019, hell, even ones before it, as I mentioned, woke, because you can wear like a little pride thing on your profile, or in some way they like are saying like, hey, you can use they them pronouns, you know, or something like that. And I find this very ironic because Call of Duty is very infamous for having one of the most toxic and worst communities, only beat by Rainbow Six Siege, which is probably the worst toxic and insane community. And ironically, Rainbow Six Siege is actually also considered woke due to the inclusion of LGBTQ characters and things like that. So just a little funny side thing. Anyways, another thing that is also disliked is the inclusion of anything pronoun related, and also games that include the word body type rather than describing biological sex with regards to character creation, as it's seen as, quote, pandering to LGBTQ players. You know, to groups like the aforementioned woke content detectors, almost any character, minor or major, who is in some way LGBTQ or has like some kind of like gay relationship, or like some kind of relationship where there's like same sex or something like that, it's considered woke or semi-woke, I guess, regardless of how prevalent it is to the story and regardless of how like obvious it is. If there's a character who in some like comic that is canon was at one point kissing a girl, the whole series might be considered woke. I don't know. The main reason for this mainly aligns with people who oppose woke in general and dislike people who are gay, trans, lesbian, you know, yeah, whatever. And they most likely view these characters or inclusions as, and like, oh, and references to Pride Month and also the relationships, as I mentioned, as like, I guess kind of a propaganda for self-expression at the cost of traditional Western values and norms, as I talked about before. And in addition, they might also talk about how a gay character is in no way nuanced and has less nuance than normal straight characters, and only exists to please audiences who want to see that. Like, you know, I guess that's fair. Not really though, because I haven't really seen a character like that, but not in a while, but they do exist, I'll admit. But yeah. Now, I find this general thought process very strange as well, with regards to the point that there are no characters that are gay purely for the sake of satisfying people who want to see that sort of stuff. Not every LGBT character is necessarily part of this umbrella. I mean, yeah, there are cases of characters who are written poorly and like their whole personality is I'm gay laugh track. Yeah, that absolutely exists. I can completely understand the hate about that. Nobody likes that. However, it's very possible to make a very deep and nuanced character that is LGBTQ. For example, the movie I Saw the TV Glow, which is a great movie, talks about, I guess, trans people and things like that. That is a whole can of worms. That movie is very complicated. And you know, another example is this, I forgot which Dragon Age game, but one of them has a gay character who you can date if you're a guy, and a lot of his story and his questline definitely talks about the tragedies of gay therapy and how it is very not so good for people, things like that. And in general, I also never understood the overall hate against small changes as well, like calling something body type A rather than female body in a character creation screen. I mean, you know what, fine, I can understand maybe why you hate a gay character or something, but this is a really minor thing to call a game woke over and not like it, or consider it some kind of revolution. You know, I cannot see how this is in some way a negative impact. It's literally just a word change in my eyes. I mean, many people would point to the, many people would point to the people who are actually freaking out about this and just say they're freaking out to garner hate and attention, and that could be true, but I'm not really sure. There are just many things to look at when it comes to this whole part of the video, but I'm sure you get the most of the, I'm sure you get the general idea, honestly, at this point. Now, those are the biggest things that tend to get flagged as, quote, woke. However, there are a lot of other things, although be it much smaller. A lot of these things I'm going to be talking about are from the woke content detector group, who I've kind of used as a guideline for this part, as a like general consensus on what is a like woke game, except like not including those two things I talked about earlier. So let's start, I guess. For example, games that promote climate action are considered woke. woke content detector considers games like Civ 6 woke for having a system that uses a carbon emission thing, like, you know, carbon ruins the earth slowly. And I mean, I don't know. Yeah, the climate's changing. It used to be like low 30s, high like mid 30s here during winter, and now it's like mid 40s, high 50s or low 50s. And it used to snow where I lived like 60 years ago. I don't know. Yeah, I guess the friggin' climate is changing. I don't know why you would go against climate action, considering it is a bad thing. And it's not something that is affecting, I guess, just America either. It's definitely affecting everything. Ironically, though, they've never flagged Factorio as woke for rewarding the player when they actively try to lessen the damage against the environment around them. So, yeah, there's that as well. And another thing that is disliked or considered, quote, woke among these groups is anti-patriarchy. This one is pretty unsurprising because if you couldn't tell, these groups like women who are both submissive, helpless, I guess helpless in the sense like the princess and Mario and things like that, and hypersexualized, and I guess this just fits in. They actually criticized Portal 2, a renowned hood classic, for having subtle anti-patriarchy messaging. In general, games that portray male characters in a negative light are also under this umbrella. Another interesting thing is how if a game portrays capitalism in a negative light or show communism or socialism in a more positive light, this is also considered woke. And this one ties more back to like disrupting American values and all that sort of stuff. Honestly, I feel like all of those kinds of games are not games. Oh my god, all of those types of government are flawed. And even if games like glorify them, you should still be aware that they're flawed. Again, also games that are anti-colonial or anti-colonialism are also, I guess, I don't know, that has a real British feel to it, but whatever. There's also DEI. Now, I briefly mentioned this earlier when talking about female representation. DEI stands for diversity, equality, inclusion, and it essentially got the same treatment as woke, how it became a negative word over time. Pro-DEI games would usually include characters who may be disabled or just a woman or old, and they show them as equally as capable as everyone else. And usually it's like against capable, by everyone else, just know everyone else is quote, quote, white, healthy men, young men too. For example, the character Kenny Kawaguchi from Backyard Baseball would be considered a woke or Backyard Baseball 97, sorry, I have to be specific, would be a quote woke character because despite being in a wheelchair, he can pitch the meanest ass balls in the whole ass game because he's the GOAT. Call him the LeBron James. But I did find this somewhat disheartening because there are people with like disabilities, and if you essentially tell them they are less capable than someone else physically because of the way they were born, like with their art, like any part of their body, and they cannot do the same things at all and are just less capable, and they should just go and do theoretical physics instead of baseball because that's all they can do, it kind of sounds like a dick move. I mean, at least give them some hope, jeez. Anyways, there are a couple of other ones, like Gary's Mod is considered woke by the Woke Content Detector group for being anti-free speech because they had a ban on anything that celebrates or glorifies Nazis or Nazism and put it in their TOS. This does not include servers with World War II, like the World War II servers that are like realism, except the ones that did focus on Nazism and the glorification of that. They would also rate Minecraft, yes, Minecraft, not even a Steam game, as woke for the splash text that supports Black Lives Matter, racial equality, and LGBTQ people. Take that as you will. Now, the reason I guess I've been kind of talking about this too is because like there are people who argue that these woke games are bad. Is that true? Not really, no, not at all. I mean, yeah, it's true that some of these woke games are bad, like Concord. That was absolute ass. However, strangely enough, you know, let's take a look at the Woke Content Detector's top sellers and top high reviewed games that are very, very popular or highly praised. Almost all of them are woke, but they are all games that are very, very popular. Some of them won Game of the Year. You know, just to list a few, you have Baldur's Gate 3, Elden Ring, Space Marines 2, freaking banger-ass game, Sims 4, Cyberpunk 2077, CS2, Tekken 8, Street Fighter 6, Hades 1 and 2, Terraria, Palworld, Backyard Baseball 97. No, I'm kidding. They didn't say that, but they would probably consider it that way. And so on. Now, it should be noted, of course, the woke people, the content detectors really only rate games based on if they're woke or not actually based on the gameplay itself. They can rate a good game, and they'll admit it's a good game, but it's just woke. So, yeah, just keep that in mind. But in general, woke games aren't bad. And someone also argued that woke agendas are making its way into multiplayer games, like Modern Warfare, and how it has, like, a pride flag. But the only argument that's really against it tends to be, like, the slippery slope-ish sort of thing, where it's like, the next we're going to be doing this, and then that, and then that, or they're just transphobic or something, so yeah. Now, this is going to be the longest conclusion in my channel, because it's a long section, so yeah. Now, I've mentioned the woke content detector plenty of times. And the reason is because they're really the only active group that I can find that are really against these woke games, and they're a tiny, tiny, tiny group compared to most on Steam. It's literally only about 2,000 users, and most of them don't talk there, or most of them don't even pay, and like most of them don't even follow like, oh, woke, I'm not gonna play this woke game. So yeah, their group is really interesting to look at as you kind of get a glimpse into how these people think and how most of them are, definitely extremists, and it's interesting to see their thought process behind how they see these games. They never really talk about gameplay in their group, rather just if a game is woke or not. I would be showing, like, I guess, images of what the group it looks like, but I don't want to show usernames at all. I don't want you guys to send hate, and so yeah, just take my word for it. You can check it out for your own, I guess, if you want, so yeah. But most of them just really care about woke games, and if a game is woke, they won't bother touching it. It's kind of how you expect, to be honest. They refer to people who play woke games or people who are LGBT or leftists as the Rainbow Mafia or groomers, I guess. And they definitely have their strong opinions about things. They're definitely very extremist. They're very conservative. But one thing is like, I don't know how the hell these people play games, because they have a full spreadsheet of games. By the way, I've used this spreadsheet multiple times for this video. They have a full spreadsheet of games that are either woke or somewhat woke or not woke. And of the 1,400 games they have reviewed, about 1,400, I think, something like that, like literally about 800 are woke, 400 are semi-woke, and 400 are not woke. Bro, over like 1,200 games are like woke to semi-woke, and they only have like 400 to play, and those 400 are like, yeah, I can't wait to go play Pajama Sam or freaking like some random ass game. Like, oh, okay, actually Peggle's kind of a banger, but whatever. And yeah, but if you kind of think like them, you could easily argue that certain games are, quote, woke. For example, they argue that females are lesser than men when it comes to combat in some of their reviews, and females are just lesser than men in a lot of their other reviews. I'm not gonna go into it. So when they say games like Left 4 Dead 1 and 2 aren't woke, it really makes me raise a brow, because 2 of the characters in each game are women who are equally as strong and capable in every single way and are banger-ass characters. They can beat up as many zombies as the freaking dudes. So yeah. Also, they reviewed a lot of porn games for whatever reason, like Futanari porn games. I have no clue why. I laughed about it for way too long. Like freaking, they're like, oh yes, finally a not woke game, and then they showed freaking like Roman adult BDSM simulator. So okay, sure. I'd also like to say that in general, though, like just to acknowledge there are bads on both sides, I guess. And what I mean by both sides is like both political sides of gamers. It can be super stupid on both sides. For example, there was an insane amount of hate on Hogwarts Legacy, in which purchasing the game was painted in a way where you were like directly supporting J.K. Rowling, even though I don't really think that's how it worked. I think they just paid her once and that was it. Not to mention the game was very inclusive and LGBTQ friendly. It was made by people who clearly did not agree with J.K. Rowling, but only paid her because they had to get the licensing. Another game that I guess woke gamers went too far, the friggin' thumbnail and title sort of thing. Another time that people definitely were a little out of line was the time that there was an indie medieval game. It was kind of like a pixely art style. I couldn't find it. It's been so long since I saw it, but it was about continuing your bloodline and having a legacy and passing down your genes. And the developer made a conscious decision to not allow gay marriages, because the point was to make a standard medieval family and pass your genes. And I just remember people were kind of just like pointing it out and be like, oh, you're homophobic. And the dev was like, and then the dev freaked. It was kind of a mess. And I felt like this was dumb, because I'm like, I don't think gay marriages need to be in a game like this. I don't think it's needed, actually. I don't think they're like necessary, especially because the point is to have kids and pass down genes. I mean, in general, I just find people like caring about these things in games on both sides, conservative or liberal, for games, just really stupid. But I will admit I find this anti-woke thing to be a little more harmful and definitely a little more concerning, as it goes beyond just games. It feels like, their idea of female characters in games, for example, like, I don't know. My ideology is just very simple. Me like game, me play. Me no like game, me no play. You get the idea. And honestly, in the end, a lot of what I say is my opinion. And you should come to yours too and do your own research about this kind of stuff, come to your own conclusions. I'm just simply presenting information. I know I'm biased, and obviously every human is, and I know I'm probably giving information that is in some way biased, and I'm probably missing counter arguments and things like that. So yeah, I actually, I'm just gonna say right now, I would be completely open to counter arguments in the discussion and like in the comments, and I would completely be open to discussion as long as it stays civil and respectful. I don't want people calling each other groomers or the Rainbow Mafia or using like, a mean, hate-provoking or anger-provoking words, things like that. I want to keep it civil. And of course, I would just also like to say again, please do not harass anyone in the video that you might have seen at all, please. Hate is not the answer to anything. Calm talking and negotiation usually is, and as usual, I just hope you guys enjoyed this one. Also, if anyone from the woke content detector group is watching, like don't Nick Fuentes me. Thank you. And I hope, no, actually, wait. Okay, wait, this is actually really funny. Comment how many times I said woke. I actually don't know. I want to see. Anyways, see you guys.